And welcome back to Take Action News with David Schuster. This is executive producer Daniel Marins. Joining me now in studio to discuss this global alliance for Bangladesh worker safety that was reached this week as an alternative to the Accord on factory and building safety in Bangladesh, led by Wal-Mart, Gap, and a number of other North American retailers, is Rob Wohl. He's a campaigner for the organization Some of Us, that's S-U-M of Us, an organization committed to holding corporations accountable for social responsibility and other goals. Rob, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daniel.
Rob, so let's get right to it. Olympia Snowe and George Mitchell, are they covering up for Gap and Walmart? Do they have the blood of workers on their hands as well?
I think you'd have to say yes at this point. I mean, I think it's clear that the point of this so-called alliance for Bangladesh worker safety is really just to muddy the waters and to create confusion among consumers about what brands are doing. I think we could say it's pretty, while it's as toothless as you just explained, it's also designed to resemble the Accord on Fire and Building Safety in Bangladesh in a lot of key ways. They basically took a lot of the provisions like worker councils in the factories to monitor safety conditions and hotlines to report on safety problems and the process of monitoring. They basically took a lot of that from the plan that, you know, the global labor federations and human rights groups had put on their table, and they just removed all the provisions that gave the thing teeth. So they took out the involvement of independent institutions like unions and the International Labor Organization. They took out the binding nature of the Accord, and now they can say they're doing all the same stuff. And really, it's now they're basically just they're hedging and saying, well, we're doing this, but you know we're gonna have to wait and see. And I think time will tell that it's that they're not following through on their commitments because there's nothing holding there's nothing them holding to it.
And of course, there's no, I think, bigger indication that they're trying to muddy the waters than the website, BangladeshWorkerSafety.org. I mean, sounds great to me, right? It sounds like a wonderful thing. But you're essentially saying that maybe there is a wait-and-see approach here, that there is a small chance that this could go off without a hitch.
Oh, well, I think the chances of that are slim. Based on the historical experience. I mean, you could call this is not a new thing, coming up with a dummy safety plan like this. I don't know if you're familiar with the history of the Fair Labor Association, but in the 90s, at the height of the anti-sweatshop movement here in the United States, a lot of garment companies or sportswear companies led by Nike formed this group called the Fair Labor Association as a alternative to the Workers' Rights Consortium, which was and remains a really strong, independent, fierce monitor of human rights issues in global supply chains. And the Fair Labor Association purported to do all the same sorts of monitoring that the independent WRC was going to do, but it was controlled by corporations essentially, and it gave this sort of it gave an imprimatur of social responsibility to companies that were doing almost nothing, that they were sort of saying, like, they were writing these very nice codes of conduct, but, weren't following through. And Apple joined the FLA when the terrible conditions were revealed at Foxconn, its supplier in China. And, as near as we can tell, independent monitors in China are saying that failed completely. So
that's such a great point, Rob. I mean, the history and background that you provide here is fascinating. Just very briefly, in just in 10 seconds or less, can you tell us where can people go to continue to get involved in this? Where to take action to hold these corporations
accountable? I really
accountable?
encourage people to continue to follow someofus.org. Our action alerts about this. We're remaining committed to this campaign, and students should certainly be involved in United Students Against Sweatshops, who've been doing amazing
that's
work.
Absolutely right. United Students Against Sweatshops and someofus.org. Get involved, stay involved, take action if you're outraged about this sham of a workplace safety plan on Bangladesh. Rob Wohl, he's a senior campaigner for Some of Us. He's one of my friends and a serious wonk, an activist here in Washington, D.C. Don't make him much better than Rob. Rob, thanks so much for joining us on Take Action News.
Thank you, Daniel.
Well, Take Action News continues. We're going to talk about the situation in Egypt and how Americans are viewing it, how we should view it, or why we should care, from someone on the ground. So stay tuned.